finally, I want to ask you about New York Times journalist Nikole Hannah-Jones, the woman behind the error-riddled and discredited 1619 project, which nevertheless won a Pulitzer. Let's not forget that. Well, she continues to obsess about race, even when discussing the Ukraine crisis. In a tweet responding to a writer's stance that the media's only concern is for Europeans with blonde hair and blue eyes, she wrote, "Every journalist covering Ukraine should really, really look internally. This is why I say we should stop pretending we have objectivity and instead acknowledge our biases so that we can report against them. Many of us see the racialised analysis and language." Nikole Hannah-Jones, my goodness. Douglas, do you see racialised analysis and language in coverage of the war?
No, I mean, this is unfortunately Nikole Hannah-Jones, the least qualified journalist, the least qualified historian. Maybe she talks about this as a sort of form of projection. She doubts that other people are able to be objective simply because she's never been able to be objective herself. She talks about other people's biases because she has such flagrant and obvious biases herself. You can always tell a monomaniac when they try to fit everything into their one monomaniacal worldview. It can be on absolutely anything. You know, there are some people who have one monomania, other people have another. Nikole Hannah-Jones it has a monomania about seeing everything through the prism of American race relations in a particular way, which she has re-racialized in recent years. And so she looks out at the world. She looks at a conflict in Ukraine with men and women and grandparents and others taking up arms to fight against the invading Russians, and now Chechnyan hordes being sent towards them. And Nikole Hannah-Jones thinks, now how can I introduce a banal and fictionalized American interpretation of race into this conflict? And that's what she's done. I pity her. I pity her readers even more to try to wade through her error-ridden and banal prose. But yes, this is what you get when you've only got one obsession and you see everything through that prism. And even if it doesn't fit, you know, nothing in the Ukraine-Russia war fits with Nikole Hannah-Jones's fabricated version of American history. But she'll try somehow to peg it in there anyway. I hope perhaps as all of these events are happening in the Ukraine and we see these just daily pictures of suffering and misery, I hope that people take a step back from the sort of cliff that Nikole Hannah-Jones and others have tried to lead them to. There are other things in the world than her race-obsessed prism. There are other tragedies going on in the world. There are other very, very big, arguably much bigger subjects going on in the world. I hope that the monomaniacs take a rest, but if we can't persuade them to, let's take a rest from them.
Yes, or call them out and mock them because they deserve mocking. Douglas Murray, thank you so much for your time this evening.
It's a great pleasure as always.